Then welcome everybody to another interview with Sad Jams. I am Anthony Corbo from We're Trying Records, and we are bringing you inside the minds of some of the finest creators in emo music and DIY music, and just all the best there. So I'm here today with Booze Radly. I have got Dylan.
Hello.
I've got Alex with me here.
Hey.
And we've got Vince in the room as well.
Hello.
So yeah, super glad to finally get a chance to chat with you guys. I think the perfect place to start is you just released a new single and music video a couple of weeks ago, White Guy Emo. It's a super catchy song. It's definitely at least a little bit introspective. Tell me the story behind the song. Tell me about the video shoot for it. Yeah.
Well, I guess I wrote it, and I don't remember when I wrote it, but we kind of sort of took not an official break, but we had a pretty long break through the pandemic, like a lot of bands. And I think when we finally kind of started planning out a real release instead of just like singles and comp entries and things, it just seemed right to do something kind of like a callback to our first EP, or like restart things with an EP again and try some stuff out. So, I mean, Dylan and I have been in a previous band that was kind of more straightforward punk rock stuff. And then, so we just went with what we knew, but also I was going through some dark stuff when we did the album, and then the pandemic happened and it was just like dark overload, so I wanted to do something a little more like, hey, snap out of it, that's kind of the premise. The video we shot, we were gonna use a more professional camera and do some other stuff. I hired my friend who actually shoots reality TV shows to film it for us, and but we ended up last second using Dylan's parents' Sony Handycam from like 2004, somewhere around then. What was that?
2009 or 10, I think.
Okay, cool. Probably filmed your graduation with it or something. But
yeah.
So
I think it looks cool though because the
yeah,
green tint to it.
It has a very bad low light sensor that gives it a real neat looking effect. But then that kind of actually led to all of the art direction being sort of like throwback. It gave me like 70s horror B movie vibes, and I wanted to kind of explore that and just have more fun with things. So we went out in Fishtown for an afternoon and acted like dumbasses. So
what else?
Acted.
Yeah.
No, it's got that lo-fi feel to it, and yeah, I think it works real well. So, like you all, as a group of four musicians, I know you had mentioned previously playing in a band.
We're up to
Dylan.
5.
Oh, you're up to 5 members now.
Yeah.
Oh wow! All right, so
and then we were at 5, and then back to 4, and then back to 5. So
well, there you go. So group of 5 musicians in a room together. Do you guys all come from like similar backgrounds? I know you mentioned previously playing in another project together. Or is this more of like just kind of a resulting mashup of a bunch of different influences and a bunch of different styles, kind of resulting in something unique and new sounding?
I think Dylan and Vince could probably speak on that a little bit.
So we all kind of grew up in the same area in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we all had been in various like bands with each other throughout high school and college, and this one is the one we've kind of anchored into the longest, and it comes from a lot of different territory of us all having been in different types of bands growing up and having all those types of influence our writing styles. So like it, to us at least, it's very apparent who's like the lead writer on a song because it comes through like crystal clear, and that, and at least to us, and whose taste shines through what types of songs that we write. Like I mean, it's coming soon. We have a song that's just gonna throw everybody through a complete spin because it sounds nothing like anything we've released before. That's gonna come out in a few weeks, and it's like a hardcore, post-hardcore song, and it's nothing like anything we've released before.
I was gonna joke that we've done a complete 360, but I didn't know if people would know I was being sarcastic. So,
Well, tell me a little bit more about that songwriting process. So do you kind of all come in with different ideas and then it's kind of put together, or is there kind of like someone who usually comes in with like a song partially finished and then you're just adding elements to it? Just kind of what's that like, and what's it like when the whole band gets in the room and starts adding pieces?
Yeah, so for for our first EP, which came out in 2014, Whitechapel Nights, and our full-length Haunted Mind, which came out 5 years later, those were like primarily written, mostly fully fledged songs by Alex, and then we would just like, add second guitar, add bass on top of it, come up with like some harmonies vocally, but they were pretty well sketched out songs already, at least insofar as like lyrics, main melody, and lead or rhythm guitar parts. And with the pandemic, it actually, we ended up being like, Vince and Alex were like two of the only people that I saw for like the like real lockdown portions of the pandemic. I like clung to them as being my pod. So I would drive down to Philly pretty much every weekend.
We were living at the time, yeah.
And so in their house, we would just like hang out on the weekends and demo out like any riffs that we had, just like in our heads. And then it was just like hot seat chair kind of approach where it's just like, all right, stop drinking, stop smoking weed. Like it's your turn in the chair, put on the headphones and just track to the click of whatever comes to your head when you hear this riff. And so it's a weird approach, I think, but it was more collaborative in that sense, where it's like the three of us kind of each having like starting point riffs and then all layering on top of that and trying to like Frankenstein songs together out of like various files that we'd had collected over that time period. So this EP, like genre-wise, it's going to be a little all over the place because it's like us cobbling together some of those parts that we'd written, and we're hoping that like this kind of scattershot approach will just show off like all of our influences, what we're into, what we're able to pull off successfully in our minds, and then try and take like a more cohesive approach with like a full-length album with like some of the other songs that we're holding back from those sessions.
Yeah,
we all play all the instruments too. So, and I mean, we even have in our demos, we have some stuff put down with our bass player on guitar and our drummer on guitar. And this EP is the first time we're having our drummer bust out his saxophone skills.
Oh, nice.
So that's fun. Yeah.
So do you tend to find like the songs tend to change a lot when you all swap instruments? Is there kind of like sound like a whole new band, or does it kind of just end up being sounding like you guys, but everyone's just kind of like trying to do different things in different places?
Me, Dylan, and Yusuf, our other bassist, have all played bass in bands separately. And I think we definitely all have very different styles of playing when I think about it. I never really stopped to think about that in the past, but like, so Dylan is more comfortable finger style playing on bass. And me and Yusuf play with a pick, but we also have differences even there between the way that we play on them. And then Vince has a Fender Bass 6 that he uses for some of the stuff that we've done. And that is just a totally different animal, but still, I think it might even make it onto this. I'm not sure. It's definitely in some of our demos that we have.
Yeah, it's definitely in a lot of the demos.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think, I've always kind of thought of it more like we don't have I know it's like hippy dippy to say, but I don't look at us as like having defined roles within the band, but rather being a group of like lifelong friends that just want to make music together.
Yeah, and I mean, to like piggyback off of that, like in like our original 4-person lineup, I was the bassist, but I was living in Pittsburgh at the time, so they had like our friend Yusuf, who's now our bassist, fill in, and he became a permanent member of the band. And I'm like, for live shows and for a lot of these new songs, I'm going to be on keys. So that's more been my role. But like when he can't make it to a show, we'll play it with a 4-person lineup and I'll slide back over to bass. For White Guy Emo, like there isn't any keyboards on that one. So I'm actually playing like a riff guitar part on it. So yeah, I mean, we don't want to lock ourselves into anything, and especially not even like a genre or a sound that's like distinctly ours.
Better or worse, yeah.
That might come with its drawbacks, but I think it's more exciting for me personally, creatively, to have that kind of like vast sea of possibilities.
You know what's real interesting I was thinking about the past couple of days is that on the first single, Vince doesn't play any guitar or add much in. And on the second single, I don't play any guitar or add much in. But like we're still working on each other's, it's like, I don't know, we're working on each other's songs even if we're not performing on them. And like we definitely could add more to it, but like sometimes it's just saying like, all right, we all have too many ideas and we got to step back and let our, you know, our friends do their thing. So I've been really psyched on that actually, because then it's also at the same time from within the band I get to be a fan of the band, because I get to listen as like just a fan of what's happening in front of me, not even something I'm working on.
Yeah, that's super interesting too, because I mean, like that versatility has got to be a really great like tool to have in your shed to be able to like deploy if someone can swap to something because someone else can't make a show, or you know, however it plays out. But like also at the same time, Haunted Mind, which came out in 2019, it reminds me of like other artists who have really developed a sound over time and have been able to like lock in on what it is they all do well together while not sounding like a rehash of previous stuff. Like, you know, Haunted Mind has a lot of similarity to like Whitechapel Nights. And I think another album that I've noticed doing this recently is like Avlov's album Bud sounds a lot like their first album Am, but it's also just like a little bit more mature and a little bit more developed, it sounds like. So like, I'm wondering what some of the like major risk factors you think the band kind of that's like led to that kind of growth and led to the point where you've gotten to be able to switch around and be versatile on each other's instruments to have it still sound like a Booz Radley song. What are some like risks that you've taken to get you there? What are some key factors in being able to do that? What's you know, what do you feel like has grown that's allowed you to really come to this place?
I actually just texted Dylan about this maybe a week ago or so, because like with Whitechapel Nights, it was sort of, sometimes it feels like these like restarts in our like friendship on music. And like Dylan and I were in a band in high school for like 2 or 3 years, maybe longer. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, so there's a riff on our new EP, and I finally, it clicked with me and I was like, oh my God, that's the same riff from one of our songs from our high school band, but like jazzed up a little bit. And he's like, it sounds better this time. And I was like, well, you know what? Hell yeah. Like it took us 10 years, 20, maybe 15 years, but we got there. Like, so, I mean, but there are like, it's interesting to me that there is a sound that I can identify that sounds like us when I hear it on our own music. And like, I have no idea where that comes from. It's just the combination of people, I guess. But even when we're swapping out on who's doing what, there's still some kind of like foundation that feels right or wrong, you know, when we're listening back to it. I don't know if these two have more insight,
Yeah,
especially Vince.
I agree. It's like no matter what instrument who's playing, there still has this like underlying cohesive sound that sounds like us. I don't know how to put a finger on it either. It's a strange phenomena.
It's kind of like a darkish sound, I feel like. like if I was trying to describe it with adjectives, like there's some meatiness to it. Like I remember when I wanted to really get into this stuff, I was thinking a lot about Jawbreakers, Dear You, and I feel like I've kind of chased after that to some extent. And then Vince is huge into like post rock, and like these elements just kind of come up. Like it's easier to tell what's happening when I feel like we try to write a song in a style, you know, like if we try to write a ska song or if we try to write a disco song or something, then we see like, oh, it's still coming back to what we normally do and we can't avoid it. Like it's looming there.
So that's really interesting that you mentioned Dear You as well. I definitely found a lot of similar things too, and a lot of like it's interesting because they have that distinct shift in sound after like 24-hour Revenge Theory that goes into Dear You at that point too. And I know there's tons of been talked about and written about that and how that killed the band or whatever, but I've always had like, if they would have started at that point, then they would have still been as popular and people would have loved them and they would have been more monumental, and you know, none of the breakup would ever happen. But you know, it's interesting to hear how different things influenced different people over time. So
Yeah, I mean, that album specifically too, like I think all five of us love that album. So that there's definitely common ground that we all share as a band too. Like we all pretty much are into Title Fight, and like that harder edged sound to punk. There's something just as like gripping.
I think the older we get, the more open-minded we are to each other as well. You know, it's not like, oh, that sucks. Like it's like, all right, I'll give it a chance or listen to it, check it out.
Yeah, like some of those just demoing out sessions that we were doing during lockdown were like Alex was just like at like 4 a.m. putting on like Blue Oyster Cult, and it's like, oh shit, I've never like really delved into their discography at all beyond like the singles that you hear in like movie soundtracks or at karaoke and stuff.
Sure.
And so like for his birthday, I just bought him like my new favorite album by them on cassette, and like
sounds awesome, by the way.
I got him into Yes like over the course of the pandemic. So like just like expanding our horizons with like stuff that like we wouldn't even like think of, like let's write a song like this, but like those kinds of things can subconsciously affect like how you write as well. So
totally. So I guess on that note, looking ahead, I know you mentioned there's an EP in the future. What's some goals for the band, short-term, long-term, especially with, you know, Booze Radly being a band for a good amount of time at this point? You know, have you kind of like thought of long-term goals in the past? And are you like, have you gotten to the point where you're starting to put together some things to continue working towards?
I think we haven't really had like as much of a roadmap in our past. Like we were just kind of like focusing on like the project that was right in front of us. And like Haunted Mind took us, like I said, there was like a 5-year point between our first EP and our full length, where we only really did like an acoustic split in between that time, insofar as like releasing music. And so like, it was just like, we were all living in different places and like experimenting with other bands at the time. So like, we didn't really have the opportunity to like plan out like what we wanted to do as a band so much in some like at that time. Whereas like lockdown, we now have probably like 25 at least half songs banked, and like so like this EP, it's going to be 5 tracks. There might be a secret track in there at the end, and
boo,
we've been
the secret.
Wink, wink. Maybe.
That really helped us like make friends in the DIY scene, where like we became active on social media really around like the early 2020, and like met a bunch of friends and like became aware of a lot of like smaller and larger DIY artists through that time. And just like in doing a lot of these compilations where we would do like covers or like acoustic versions of songs of ours, just like really played like the networking game of just like getting to know, okay, who's in the scene now? Because after like a year and a half of everything being shut down, a lot of bands fell off by the wayside. So like we just, it's weird that like the scene kind of became entirely online for a point, but that also made it easier to like meet new people. And so like now you have the phenomena of like going to shows again, and it's like, oh, is that this person? Like, I know you by your Twitter handle. It's like
an Marx's mom.
Strange.
Yeah.
But
our Facebook is like dead. It's so strange, the difference, like that with Facebook events and sharing shit and whatever, pardon my French, was like the only thing to do. And now I like get updates occasionally. It's like, you should promote. I'm like, I don't want to promote crap on here. This is a wasteland, you know, like.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's band page is pretty much in that same state right now. It's all on Twitter and everything.
I saw Into It Over It getting into comment fights on Facebook about like being pro Roe v. Wade or something, and I was just like, damn, they are older than us, huh? They're still on Facebook.
Shout out Evan Weiss, a Philly and Chicago hero.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't hear any of this. So, you know.
So I guess, you know, the next EP, when do we have a release date in mind for that, or?
We're shooting for late August. So we're going to go coming out July 31st. That'll be like the post-hardcore one. That's like a lot heavier than anything we've put out prior to this. And
Full band acoustic track. That one's exciting. It's just like a weird left turn. I hope it gets some, you know, what is that called? The U-tunes or whatever the hell are like jukebox play or something. You know?
Touch tunes.
Yeah, touch tunes. That's what I hope we get some of that action.
Yeah, AMI is the one though.
Yeah. But so yeah, the EP is almost like done. It's like done recording wise, and it's just getting tinkered with, and then we'll have
mixing it, mastering it. So
I have some plans after that, because we're only now 2 years out from 10 years from our first EP. So I had some ideas to do with like remixing and mastering that.
Wow.
And then we have
any shows or touring plans to go along with that, or?
Shows, yes. Touring is, I've been using the phrase herding cats a lot more lately with 5 people in the band, but we've sketched out like routes we would take, and I guess it's kind of just gauging interest once stuff's out, whether we take the plunge or not, you know. But we'll definitely be playing around at least the East Coast through the fall, I think. So as long as we can until, you know, God willing, we are done with this madness, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, that's plenty exciting in itself. And I mean, like a new EP, you got anniversary EPs. You guys got your work cut out for you over the next little while here.
Yeah, we go right back into recording for the second album, like maybe a month or two after the EP comes out. So
damn right.
Yep.
Well, all right. So here is my last real question for you all. I see a bunch of basketball news popping up on the from time to time. Give me the NBA hot take. Give me just number one, just your top hot take.
I'm definitely the one that's always posting about basketball on the timeline.
My hot takes would obliterate the timeline with me being harassed, for sure. I once said Joel Embiid is the Carson Wentz of the Sixers, and got death threats afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know. NBA hot take. I don't
know.
Come on,
Dylan, we got this.
Give me a Durant landing spot.
Durant landing spot.
Arizona.
I'm gonna say he's going back to Golden State.
Ooh, that's a weird one.
He's
and that legacy tweet that he just made will forever be infamous because of it, where he'll have completely ruined his legacy in the eyes like everyday fan. Just like
he has to play Little B if he wants to win.
Team to win your championships after losing a 3-1 lead to them in the conference finals, and then you left to go form your own team and prove yourself that like you could be the star of a team. It imploded in like a year where you played I don't know, not even 15 games with all three of your big three that you formed. And now you have to go back to Steph Curry and
beg for forgiveness.
Yeah.
How about this hot take? Ben Simmons chased everyone out of the Nets.
Wow. I don't disagree with that one too hard. No, it's the rumors were flying. Anything is possible. Stranger things have happened than Durant going back to Golden State. So, all right. Well, to wrap us up here, any last things you'd like to promote, or other than the EP coming out soon? Any shows coming up? Anything like that?
We're looking at 2 shows in Philly, back to back. I think it'd be kind of funny if we find like a matinee show to add 3 in a row in Philly, but that would be
Sunday afternoon at the Fire.
Yeah, Sunday. No, 8:20 and 8:21, looking like
19, 19, 20.
19 and 20. Yes, one at Gray's Ferry, and then where's the other one, Dylan?
So we're playing on the 19th. It's a house show in Philly near Temple's campus, and on the 20th we're going to be playing an outdoor show at Gray's Ferry Skate Park.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, make sure you're following them on Twitter at Booze Radly. Make sure y'all are following at We're Trying Rec on Twitter and on Instagram, and make sure you're following at Sad Jams on Instagram and all that good stuff. Follow Sad Jams playlist on Spotify. Wait to see when all of your favorites get added. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to chat with you boys. This has been Booze Radly. I've been Anthony Corbo, and we will talk to you all later.
Right on.